Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1197B, and today's date is February 6th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Truth Bombs Are Exploding All Over the Place, and the Corporate Media and Elite Are Scrambling. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, CNN, ABC, NBC, they all came out with polls about immigration. And we know right now that there was a federal judge that pretty much put the kibosh on Trump's plan to put a temporary ban on those people coming in from certain countries. And the polls that are out there, they're saying that the people, well, they don't want immigration. They don't want vetting of these individuals coming into the country from certain countries or any of the countries that are out there. They just want people to jump over the border and just come into the United States. And Trump is out there saying that, these polls, well, they're completely fake, phony, and false, because he says the people, they want border security and extreme vetting, which means, intensive background checks to make sure that these people are on the up and up. And we can see right now that CNN, ABC, NBC, well, they're showing different polls. Now, when we look at the polls, we know that these networks, they oversample the polls quite a bit. And what they did normally is, they had it very heavily weighted on the Democrat side to say, see, look how everyone is voting. So they were found out, a lot of oversampling. So they decided, we better cover our tracks. So what they're doing at this point is showing that 29% describe themselves as Democrats, 25% describe themselves as Republican, and 45%, well, they're all independent. So all they did was move the numbers around to make the polls, look like, oh, they're fair and even. But when you look closely, that these percentages don't make sense whatsoever. And we can see right now that the data, once again, has been manipulated. Now, this is all very strange because during the election, Trump ran on the campaign of stronger immigration. And right now, they're trying to say that America doesn't want this at all, which, first of all, doesn't make sense. So on the X22 Report and News Sentinel, I decided to start running polls. Now, I'm going to let them run a couple of days. And the question was, should the U.S. implement strong immigration and extreme vetting? These are the questions that these networks were asking. Now, the information that I'm receiving is completely different. On the X22 Report, 94% said yes, 4% no, 2% undecided. On News Sentinel, it was 97% yes, 2% undecided, 2% no. Now, I'm going to let these run a couple of days. And as we know, during the elections, the alternative media polls were completely different than the corporate media polls. I mean, actually, if you look at the Super Bowl, all the corporate media was out there saying that, Falcons have a 96.1% of winning. The Patriots have no chance. And once again, they were completely wrong because look what happened in the fourth quarter, then in overtime. And of course, after the Falcons lost, you see all the tweets and everything coming out saying that the rules should be changed. And it's just amazing. Every time their team loses, they want to change the rules. Now, everyone agreed to the same rules. Agreed to the election rules, agreed to the Super Bowl rules. But when people don't get their way, they want to change it afterwards. Just amazing. Now, there's a lot of lawsuits heading towards Donald Trump, against Donald Trump. They're being filed against him. And this is about the Muslim ban. Now, of course, we know it's not a Muslim ban. It doesn't say Muslim anywhere in the executive order or anything else. And we can see there's a lot of lawsuits, about a dozen of them. And already the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, they have raised from donations $24 million in a single weekend, or roughly 6 times the organization's average annual donation tally. Now, we saw this before when the recount was happening. All of a sudden, the money being raised was tremendous. And then we have to track the money down. Who was doing this? Was this from individuals where they were throwing in $20, $30, $40, $50 a pop? Or was this coming from someplace else? And what we're seeing is that the money is coming from George Soros. He is driving all this once again. Soros Open Society Institute has given over $35 million to the ACLU alone, and millions more to other liberal organizations directly involved in filing lawsuits all around the country. So we can see at this point, this is not a grassroots effort. This is an effort being driven by Soros. And if you remember from his speeches, he said that he was going to go after Trump and he was going to do everything he possibly can to bring him down. We see Trump is moving forward with the voter fraud probe. He's putting Mike Pence in charge of this. And we can see right now that a lot of information that's coming out already is already showing that there is voter fraud. Now, there's going to be a lot of truth bombs coming out at this point. And the corporate media and the elite, they're going to be scrambling. They're not going to know what to do because of everything that's been happening. Now, we have to remember, the truth in the beginning is going to be made fun of. It's going to be ridiculed. We've went over this. And this is what we're seeing. Every time something comes out, they're going to be making fun of the truth. If you notice, Trump is slowly dropping little nuggets, and people are laughing and making fun, and they're going to continue to do this over time. And we'll move into the next phase, and we're halfway through it, through the ridicule, moving into the fight phase, where people are going to start fighting and opposing the truth when real information starts to come out. And this is what the investigations are all about. It's to move us in that direction. And we're also going to see this come out with regards to global warming. I mean, we're already starting to see a UN official out there saying, yeah, that wasn't really the agenda of global warming. It wasn't really about the environment. It was really about destroying capitalism and other agendas. And now we have a scientist out there who's saying, well, a lot of the data, well, it's fake. And the information was rushed through to influence the Paris Agreement on climate change. And this is coming from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And the person who is pushing this, who's blowing the whistle, I should say, is Dr. John Bates, a top NOAA scientist with impeccable reputation, has shown evidence that the paper, the report, was based on misleading, unverified data. It was never subjected to NOAA's rigorous internal evaluation process, and it was just thrown out there. And they took buoy information, satellite information, and when the numbers weren't adding up, they threw the data out, and they made up the numbers. And we can see right now that this information is continually coming out, and it's showing that all of this is being done for a certain purpose, a certain agenda. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of truth that is coming out, and it's going to continue. Now, he went on to say that the software that was used to, detect the land temperature, to detect the satellite information, well, it was done with software that was bug-ridden and unstable, and the data is completely worthless. Now, when Congress ordered NOAA to hand over the data, they didn't have it. All of it was lost. They can't replicate their findings. And in science, you need the raw information to repeat the experiment, and you should get the same results. And we can see right now that they can't do it because all the information is lost. There was a complete failure in the system, and there's nothing there. And we can see right now that there's a complete investigation into all of this because NOAA refused to comply with subpoenas, demanding internal emails from the committee chairman. They falsely claimed that no one had raised concerns about the paper internally when Dr. Bates did raise concerns. So what we're seeing is lies. They're hiding the truth. They can't produce any information. And this is another truth bomb. Now, we can see a lot of the private Western central bank countries where there are elections coming up, they're going to be fighting against fake news. We know Angela Merkel, the elections are coming up in Germany, and she's already started the process of going after fake news, trying to hide information about her because, hey, this is not going to help her in the election. We see that France is doing the same thing because elections are coming up. They're going to be cracking down on fake news, hiding the fake news, and working with Google and Facebook to do all of this. And we can see right now that all of these countries where there are elections that are coming up, the leaders are very nervous that people are going to learn the truth. Well, you know what? The people already know the truth. They already know what they're going to do. It has nothing to do with fake news because there's already a study saying that, the fake news that's out there that's really fake, and I'm not talking about the alternative media, which is out there telling the truth, that has no bearing on anything. So their whole argument about fake news, swaying the elections is absolutely ridiculous. People already know that these governments, they're not working for the people. I mean, just look at the unemployment. Look what's happening in the countries. Look how much debt everyone is in. Look at the immigration problem. I know the corporate media is out there saying, oh, there's no immigration problem. But look at the real problems here. People already know it. They feel it. This is why they're electing different leaders, because they don't want the same leaders anymore. They've seen what they've done. Now they want something different. Now, Russia is out there. They're very upset with Bill O'Reilly because he called Putin a killer. And of course, he just came out and said it. Does he have proof? No, not really. But we can see right now another truth bomb was laid out there because Trump quietly during the interview said, do you think the United States is so innocent? Now, remember, he can't come out and just tell everyone the truth right off the bat. Now, a lot of people are going to laugh at this. He sounds crazy, sounds like a nut, because the truth does sound crazy. Lies sound more convincing. But when you hear the truth, you're like, no, that can't be true. And people laugh at it. They make fun of it. Then they oppose it when the research is done and the real investigation starts. And then eventually they have to accept it. So we're heading down that path right now. And what's very interesting about all of this is that France's Marine Le Pen, who is running for the position of Hollande in France, well, she was being interviewed by CNN. And we can see right now the CNN interviewer, well, that person wasn't too happy with the way the interview was going. And here are some of the questions. CNN, does it not bother you that a big country broke international law and invaded and annexed a small country? Le Pen said, no, there was a coup d'etat in Ukraine. CNN, that's what you think? Le Pen, it's not just what I think, it's the reality. There was a coup. There was an agreement among different nations, and the next day this agreement was broken and some people took over. CNN, after the invasion and the annexation? Yes? Le Pen, there was no invasion of Crimea. The people of Crimea voted to go with Russia. CNN, but Russia annexed Crimea. It was part of Ukraine. And the French were part of the deal that guaranteed the independence of Ukraine in 1994. Le Pen, Crimea was Russian. It always been Russian. CNN. So it's fine for you, though you're okay with it. Le Pen, the people of Crimea feel Russian. The people decided to vote themselves away from Ukraine. And then Le Pen followed up with that these sanctions are completely stupid. Now, you can see that the truth is coming out there. CNN didn't know what to do with it because they don't want that information out in the open. And people are going to ask questions, well, what does she mean by all of this? And we're starting to see this all over the place. Now, out in Ukraine, we can see that Trump is not going to help Ukraine whatsoever. He didn't buy what is going on, that Russia is there attacking Ukraine. So Poroshenko right now is calling on the Ukrainian population to prepare for a protracted war, a long war. He said, let's resume preparations for the civil defense of our population. Today, we should honestly tell our people that no Minsk agreement, no negotiation, no geopolitical shifts in the world will lead to a stabilization of the situation. So basically what he's saying is we are going to war and get ready for a long, drawn out one. And guess what? He's going to start the draft. More people are going to be coming into the armed forces. There are going to be more attacks. What we're seeing around the world is complete chaos. The elite, the corporate media, the establishment, they don't know what to do at this point. Things have been turned upside down for them. And they're losing control. And the only thing they can do to get their control back is to start a war. To take everyone's focus off of what is happening right now and place it someplace else. We see that Trump is out there and he placed sanctions on Iran. And we're hearing that, coming from General Mattis, who is the U.S. Defense Secretary, that Iran is the world's biggest state sponsor of terrorism. And Lavrov is out there, and he's saying Iran has never had any ties with the Islamic State, al-Nusra, al-Sham, al-Qaeda. What are you talking about when you say terrorism? Because those are the terrorist groups. I mean, there's plenty others, but name the terrorist groups that Iran sponsors. And this is very interesting because that's all you hear is that Iran is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. Actually, no, it's the United States that is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. Tulsi Gabbard went out to Syria and already proved it. This is why she placed the bill into Congress, that the U.S. will no longer fund and support terrorism. And we can see right now, this is what is happening throughout the world. We see that the Military Times is reporting that thousands of deadly U.S. airstrikes have gone unreported since 2001. Which means all these airstrikes that were occurring in these countries, they haven't been recorded. And the Military Times went on to say, the American military has failed to publicly disclose potentially thousands of lethal airstrikes conducted over several years in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. Military Times investigation has revealed that there's an enormous data gap. And it raises serious doubts about transparency in reporting the progress against the Islamic State, al-Qaeda, Taliban, and calls into question the accuracy of other Defense Department disclosure documents, everything from costs to casualty counts. Now think about this. They've been lying all this time because the United States government central bankers throughout this period of time, they have been helping the terrorist groups. This is why they can't report it. This is why there isn't transparency. Now it's all starting to make sense. It's all starting to fit together. Here's another truth bomb. They're all starting to come out. And this is going to be horrific because once everything starts to come out and there's investigations and people learn more and more, people are going to have a very difficult time handling all this. I mean, let's go back to the movie Matrix. When Neo found what reality really was, well, he popped. He couldn't take it. He had a nervous breakdown. And this is what people are going to go through. And as more and more this information comes out and there's real investigations going on, it's going to be very, very difficult for our population. And we can see with the economy, with what has been going on around the world, well, this is going to be a problem. This is why Trump was out there saying, do you think America is so innocent? Well, America is not innocent. Bad people have been doing bad things for a very long time. And the corporate media, they haven't been reporting on it. They believe that if they don't report on it, it's not lying. If we just omit it, it's fine. And for many people, the image of America, well, it's going to change completely, because their image of what America was and what it really is, it's going to be very, very different and very, very hard to digest, to swallow. And it's going to be very, very difficult. We see out in Syria, Assad, well, he's extended amnesty for the rebels and anti-government forces. And he extended this now to June of 2017, saying, listen, lay down your weapons. You can go back into society, and the Syrian government will not touch you. Now, The Economist is out there, and they did an op-ed, and The Economist warns that the world must prepare for trouble under Trump. So they have a picture of him throwing a Molotov cocktail. It's lit on fire, and it looks like he's throwing it. And we can see right now that they've turned up the dial with fear-mongering. And they're describing the insurgency in the White House and how things are really going to go crazy under Trump. And we can see already that they're pointing the fingers at Trump. They're preparing to blame him, and they know what is coming. They understand that this economy is coming down, and it is going to be completely horrific, because most likely we're going to see riots. We're going to see things that we've never seen before here in this country, and they're getting prepared and ready to point the finger at Trump, to say that it is his fault. And you can see the images that they are using, and we can see at this point, you need to be prepared for what is coming. The corporate media, the elites, the central banks, they're getting ready, prepared. They know what's coming. They understand that their system cannot stay and continue the way it is, and things are rapidly falling apart. They're preparing to blame it on Trump, and this country is going to be completely chaotic when all of this occurs. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.